Last week, I brought you the second of the three-part series reflecting on this massive year, which included the history-making Indigenous athletes on the Australian Olympic team, as well as Aboriginal woman Ash Barty's incredible Wimbledon win. If you haven't watched the episode yet, be sure to head back to my homepage after this video and check it out. This week, I finish off the year with some major headlines and unbelievable events, so stick around and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. In September, the New South Wales COVID outbreak caused massive concern across the country for Indigenous Australians, with several more deaths recorded. Politicians from all walks of life blamed anti-vaxxers for spewing misinformation into remote Aboriginal communities. September was also a big month for sports, with both the NRL and AFL Grand Finals taking place. This year, COVID again threw a spanner in the works for Victoria, who were unable to host the AFL Grand Final. But it meant history would be made, and somehow state daddy Mark McGowan secured the first and likely only ever WA AFL Grand Final at Optus Stadium. As the AFL season came to an end, several players announced their retirement, including champion Indigenous footballer Eddie Betts.
I believe I've got a bigger role to play now. My journey is only just beginning.
The AFL players' announcement came at the heels of the Tex Walker controversy, where Betts' former teammate was called out for using a racial slur against an Aboriginal player. A very scripted apology video was published. The jury is still out on Walker's future, with many Indigenous players, both past and present, disappointed in his actions. Another big news event in September included the confirmation of the state's first ever Indigenous female senator. Yamatji and Noongar woman Dorinda Cox was announced as the Greens' replacement for Rachel Siewert. Cox has made domestic violence, death in custody, and raising the age of criminal responsibility among her priorities. In October, Manjimup RSL came under fire after its president of more than 20 years went on a racist tirade against Aboriginal people. Rex Brown had been the president for more than 2 decades, and in early October, he reportedly said that he was sick of smoking ceremonies and that the Aboriginal flag shouldn't be next to the Australian flag. The RSL said they didn't support his views. The long-awaited trial of a WA officer who shot dead a Yamatji mother took place in October. For 2 weeks, the family of JC sat during the trial, where CCTV vision of her final moments were released. It took the jury just 3 hours to clear the officer of both murder and manslaughter. Understandably, her family were disheartened by the verdict.
Don't ever ask for welfare check on your family when they're in mental health state. Don't ever.
Sadly, injustices against Aboriginal women didn't stop there. While the world was captivated by the case of missing woman YouTuber Gabby Petito, in Australia, an Aboriginal mother's missing case went unreported until sadly her body was found. 21-year-old Charlene Warrior was last seen when she went to pick up her 1-year-old daughter from her ex-partner's house in Butte on Yorke's Peninsula on September 18. Her body was found by a member of the public and her death was ruled unsuspicious, but her family say that there's a lot of unanswered questions surrounding her death.
She loves her family and she always comes back home to her mum.
In lighter news, Brooke Blurden's season of The Bachelorette premiered with a welcome to country kicking off the red carpet, which was a first for Channel 10. Blurden went on to choose frontrunner David Gulpilil. In November, the McGowan government introduced the highly anticipated Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Bill, despite the many objections from traditional owners. I gave you guys my thoughts on the bill, so if you haven't watched it, be sure to go back and watch the episode, Who Really Benefits from the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Bill. After months of no COVID cases, the Northern Territory had a major scare in November when an outbreak was reported in remote Aboriginal communities. Catherine and a handful of NT communities went into lockdown. Conspiracy theories began to swirl with rumours that the army had forcibly injected people with the vaccine, which was dispelled by authorities. By the end of the month, the situation looked less dire as communities were on track to exit lockdown. Also in November, Perth Airport became the first major airport in the country to acknowledge Australian Indigenous culture. In a moving gesture, the airport began to identify and use Aboriginal names on boarding gate signs for flight destinations. The changes had many on social media calling for other airports to follow suit. The National Indigenous Music Awards were held in November with Kid Laroi taking home Artist of the Year after breaking chart records around the world with his mega hit collaboration Stay with Justin Bieber. Sadly, at the end of November, we lost a trailblazer in Australian film when it was announced that actor David Gulpilil had lost his long-term battle with lung cancer. His debut in acting occurred during a time when non-Indigenous actors played the role of the Aborigine. Ask any Aboriginal actor who their inspiration is and Gulpilil would be up there. His contribution to the film industry is immeasurable. Gulpilil was 68. Here we are, last month of the year, and still so much has happened. A new report found that a significant increase in prisoner numbers and staff shortages at the NT's 2 youth detention centres had left young people locked in their cells for more than 23 hours a day. There were about 60 young people detained in the Northern Territory during the February 2021 reporting period, about double of what had been reported 12 months earlier. And it included an increase in number of young children under the age of 14. The majority were also Indigenous. Ahead of next year's election, a group of Indigenous community leaders from far western New South Wales launched a national political party. The Indigenous Aboriginal Party of Australia has officially been approved by the Australian Electoral Commission. The party says Indigenous Australians are underrepresented by the major political organisations. The Indigenous Party of Australia has 2,000 members and is looking to expand into all states and territories. The Family Matters report released by the Secretariat of National Aboriginal and Islander Children Care found 2,523 Indigenous children were in out-of-home care as of June 30, 2020, which represents 1 in every 15.6 First Nations children living in Australia. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children make up 6% of all children in Australia, but they represent 39% of all children in out-of-home care. In WA, more than 50% of children in out-of-home care are Indigenous. The West Australian revealed that a high-profile barrister will assist the families of 2 Aboriginal women who died while sleeping rough on the streets of Perth. This year, at least 44 homeless people have died in Perth. Many were First Nations. Also in December, we saw an end of an era. Stephen Page announced he would make 2022 his final year as the artistic director of Bangarra Dance Theatre after 30 years as its leader. It'll be Page's last year leading the company that he took the helm of in 1991 at the age of 24. Former Barunga dancer, choreographer, and current Associate Artistic Director Francis Rings will take over in 2023. Lastly, some good news, I guess. Last week, the McGowan government passed the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Bill in the final weeks of Parliament. The Upper House passed the bill despite protests by many Indigenous groups. The bill passed without amendments in the Legislative Council on December 14 and will go to Government House for royal assent. Thank you to everyone who subscribed or watched this channel. It's been a pleasure to take you through the year that was. Here's to 2022. Paint It Black will be taking a break over New Year's, but I'll be back next year, so don't forget to subscribe and press the notification button to stay up to date. Until then, stay deadly.